Hello, my name is Justin Latterell, and I'm here at the Center for the Study of Law and Religion at Emory University. I'm talking with Professor Michael Broyde today about his newly released book that he's co-authored with Professor Shlomo Pill. Professor Broyde, thank you for being here, and congratulations on publishing the book.
It's a pleasure to be here, Justin, and it's always nice to get a book out finally.
Great. Can you tell us what the book's about, and why did you and Shlomo Pill decide to write this book?
This book is an attempt to do three things, and it continues work I did a few years ago with another one of our graduate students named Ira Bedzow, who's now a professor at New York Medical College. This book outlines a history of codification of Jewish law. It explains the tumult that the Jewish tradition was undergoing in the late 1800s, and it explains the views taken to Jewish law matters by Rabbi Yechiel Mikhel Epstein, who was the last person to write a full restatement of Jewish law. He died around 1910, and from Maimonides to him, in the span of almost 1,000 years, only the two of them undertook to write a restatement of everything. And this book is an attempt to work out what principles he used to determine what normative Jewish law should be. Maimonides, of course, gave us no sources, and so determining his principles became somewhat of a guessing game. Rabbi Epstein annotated and sourced everything, but when you deal with a work of this size, you have to really check through closely to make sure you've figured out what really actually is going on in his mind. Finally, we have a chapter in this book comparing him to the other great codifier of Jewish law at this time, whose name was Rabbi Israel Kagan, who wrote a book called The Mishnah Brura, The Clear Law. And the two of them undertook the process of recodification simultaneously, but in totally different ways. And one of the things we try to do in this book is explain how two people who live in the same time, in the same place, and have the same culture and have the same language, who are really very similar, could approach a topic like recodification so differently. And one of the sub-themes of the book are intellectual choices codifiers of law make. And that's itself worthwhile. We like to live in a time where people attribute these differences to cultural norms. This one grew up in Baghdad and this one grew up in the Ukraine. But these two great Jewish law authorities grew up 70 miles apart from each other in pretty much the same milieu, and yet they approach the question of codification totally differently. And that's what makes it an interesting compare and contrast. So we enjoy doing all three of these things, and we hope that we've contributed to more detailed conversations about how and why codification takes place in the Jewish tradition.
That's fascinating. Who do you see as the main audience for this book, and what might non-specialists in Jewish law find most interesting about the book?
So non-specialists in Jewish law gain very much from reading the opening material, which discusses how a system of law that was not codified. And it resonates very deeply with anybody who's familiar with the process the common law has used in the last 500 years. The common law was originally, like Jewish law, uncodified. And now we're living in a time and a place where everything is codified. How do you codify an uncodified system? It's a very fascinating question. The Jewish tradition did this, and the common law tradition did this, and watching how people compare codifications is very fascinating.
That's great. Well, I've got my copy, but what's the best way for people to access this book?
I'm not sure. Access is always complicated in the modern world. You can, of course, request that your library buy a copy. You can buy it yourself on Amazon or in Kindle, or many other ways. The publisher themselves sells it on their webpage, Academic Studies Press. There are many different ways nowadays to purchase books. We've gone from the era of only one way to purchase books to many, many, many of them. And a soft cover edition will be coming out shortly, and that'll be an easier purchase for many people.